Okay, so welcome to Network Security lecture number 8. So the last time we started with various elements of viruses, and let me just see, where do we jump in? Oh yeah, okay. So what is a virus? It's a self-spreading, self-replicating piece of code which often has some kind of negative additional properties. Typically, the core element is the self-replication. The second element that's optional is some malicious intent, some malicious activity. I think I told you also last time when I was also once experimenting with writing some virus, and if you are not really well equipped with this knowledge, so eventually I replicated the virus code in every file on my hard disk, and then I had to reinstall this operating system, so not just executables. But now it's quite easy. There are some simple tools where you can compile and then select and click and point which kind of features you want, and then you just create your own code based on that. So it's very accumulated and then addressing script kiddies that can easily do this. But so we were looking at how an infection could look like. So basically, if you have a specific start point where the code knows where it should jump into the code, so there's some data specified, variables and so on, and then you jump into the code. And basically, if you modify the jump element and you jump at places which you added to the file, then you can basically divert the flow of the instructions and where the instructions are basically processed. So basically, you jump to your virus part and then you jump back so that the regular instructions are also followed. And then we were discussing several attempts, so how the cat and mouse game goes along. So basically, if you can detect the jump at the beginning, then it's easier for antivirus software to detect this. So the next step was basically the entry point obfuscating, obscuring, so that you jump into your code from some kind of legal irregular and jump in the code itself, so not structural element. And then we were talking about how the viruses can be detected. It's basically the simplest form to detect the virus is by looking into the signature, some kind of bit patterns. And in order to avoid showing these bit patterns, you can encrypt viruses, and then you need a decryptor. And this encryption can also make sure that, let's say, every time the virus is decrypted to run and to execute its malicious activity, it adds some kind of randomness to the next encryption, so that the whole encrypted part always looks new and cannot be recognized later. So then the antivirus software would go to identify the decryptor. And what does the decryption do then is that you can work with so-called metamorphic viruses, where you basically have different types to compute something or to run your instructions, and you can translate it to, I don't know, can you do various stuff that you, how to come to a result. And basically, if you modify those alternatives, how code can be interpreted and how it can be realized, so that this metamorphic equal effects but different code, if you optimize this, then you could still come to the same conclusion, and basically that you can detect. But again, there are many elements how this can go, and there's always an advantage of the virus creators, as they first operate in the obscure. They are not detected. They can identify new vulnerabilities, and then for some kind of time, this virus generation has some kind of benefit and cannot be detected. So there's always some kind of cat and mouse game there. What you could also do is, beside looking at the signatures and detect decryptors and so on, is to look at the behavior. So basically to consider it as black box and not at all look into the virus. So that would be the white box where you can look into the virus and identify the signatures. But if you consider it as a black box and you run it in a controlled environment and you measure how it interacts with the environment, so what kind of file calls it does, what kind of network activity it has, then you could identify this activity as malicious or as anomalous. So basically, and there's a very strong correlation between the antivirus software and the network or in general intrusion detection systems. Because both of them look for patterns, look for anomalies, look for irregular activities, and these patterns are typically stored in some kind of database where they match it. With heuristics, it's a little bit different. There you don't have the clear signatures where you look for, but you have so-called, maliciousness points. That's sometimes also for the email classification, whether it's spam or not. Basically, there are different kind of hints on cues and properties that can give you good or bad points. And if you accumulate too many bad points, because, you advertise some specific products, you send it out to too many people, you use some illegal characters that hide some kind of link, then you can accumulate bad points, and then your email could be classified as malicious. And the same is also for the activity of files. If you access, too many files at the same time, if you modify too many files, if you copy from your memory into these files, that accumulates malicious points, and then you could also be classified as malicious. And I think this is where we roughly stopped. So we had a look at this specific file, if I remember correctly. Let me just see. Basically, the idea was this is a very simple file, and what it does, it tries to avoid being detected by ignoring many files that are considered potentially traps for viruses. So trap by antivirus vendors or antivirus companies are sometimes called honey trap, honeypot, that attracts the flies or the bees. I'm not really sure why it's, what kind of animal you attract with honey that's considered malicious. Honeypot, not pot. So, and basically, sometimes also in security, there are some kind of traps that are actively put out to attract attackers, and then to learn what kind of attackers are there in the wild, what kind of strategies do they run, and this honeypot looks vulnerable, but is very closely monitored, and basically the antivirus or the IT security guys learn from the observed behavior of the attacker a lot about the attacker himself. Okay, so first of all, it ignores prominent files, and then it only affects with a probability of 50%. So, and let's assume you only, let's say every file that is run is first analyzed for maliciousness, and then over time it accumulates some good points if it behaved correctly. So probably then some of the files will be not detected in the first time, will be rated as positive, and then they get infectious. So it's a way to counteract the observation. What it also does, it replaces certain function calls from libraries it uses to calls to the decryptor. So if there's any way a call to a library, then this call to the library is changed to some other call, which is then running the decryptor, and then from there it's going back to the desired place. And also the code itself can be spread in various parts of the file itself. So it's not at one place, it's spread across the file. Okay, and how does it further hide its activity? So first it disassembles the code. there's some further optimization on this. It can cross-compile or basically compile that code that is the virus code for the specific platform you are currently on. It is optimized and minimized. It is then split in single blocks. So basically you have a large file, then you minimize it to the core, then you split it. Then you expand all of these parts with unnecessary junk parts, redundant operations, code fragments. So basically, you introduce new parts that break the code itself. So if you're, for example, testing for some specific signatures, then it might be more probable that this signature is cut in half by some introduction of some redundant operations. And basically, this is then the new big part. So this will be the new part. So every time, in every file, in every operation, every infection step, it's basically the file is disassembled, it is changed in a way that it looks different, and it's reassembled again, so to make it more difficult to detect. So this is for the static analysis and for the dynamic analysis. When it's about running the code, if you run the code, then you give it some time to behave, and then you observe that behavior, and then you see what kind of activities did it do. And in one out of 4 cases, it doesn't do anything. And the malicious routine occurs only on certain dates. And this is quite dramatic. I mean, just consider if there's some antivirus optimization ongoing so that classifies or gives some positive points every time it was successful and well behaving, then over time it might accumulate some good reputation, and at that malicious at that specific date it uses that good reputation to act maliciously. So it's quite, I mean, still that's an ongoing battle, ongoing activities in order to identify and stop the spreading of viruses. Okay. Good. So now we are coming to the next step. So basically after viruses, what's the next step? So virus is still limited to one machine only. And that's the core, I mean, the core idea of viruses is that you look for files on the same machine, maybe on connected hard drives, connected external devices such as USB disk or so, but typically that's it. That's only happening on one machine. And the next step is that you have viruses that spread through computer networks, that do not just look at the whole, at the PC itself and tries to infect files on that computer, but also to use the network. And this is then a worm. And basically what are the new elements? So first you have to identify to whom you want to connect. You have to connect to that machine and transfer your code, and then you have to execute it there. So remote control and updates. So transfer to plus execute. And this remote control and updates is more about using the malicious activity. Because you are more interested in using that computer's networking capabilities for your malicious purposes than maybe on files that are on it. Okay, so how would you select targets? What would be your criteria? Yeah. So if you're on a machine and now your worm is running and you want to spread it, how would you identify the next IP address also to contact, or the next email addresses also? Or what kind of contacts do you have, or what kind of targets could you think of?
For example, the Wi-Fi connection
Okay, let's say that's one option, yes. What else? How else what other networking protocols or networking applications could we use to spread worms? Internet, yes, yeah, okay. And what application on the internet? So, what kind of communication do you receive regularly and send regularly? Emails, one option, okay. Yeah, emails or WhatsApp or so. That would be also one option. So basically what you could do is sometimes using the user's local address book. So basically if you have access, if you probably have access to the email program of the user, you could send out to all emails in the contact list some email with some malicious URL or so, or you send a file directly. Please open this fancy, nice cat picture. You could, email addresses from the hard disk, from other programs, ICQ, or probably not. I'm still a little bit sad. So ICQ now closed. They will close, I think, in June. And I had a very short number, so that's still sad that it doesn't continue. But okay. So email addresses are easy to come by. Or if you go for IP addresses, then you can basically look first in the subnet in which the PC is. As you know, basically you have an IP address. It's an octet, so basically 4 times 8 bits. And if you have the, I don't know, /25 or so, that means that the first 25 bits are used by the subnet, and the remaining 32 minus 25 equals 7. So 7 bits. So non-computer scientists might find it strange, but I mean, yes, it's 7 bits that you have, so 128 hosts to address. That's your subnet. This is how your IP address is typically made of. I mean, that you have some kind of subnet mask that tells you the first how many bits address the subnet, and the remaining bits address the host. And the specific property of the subnet is that all hosts within the same subnet can reach each other, can communicate to each other without passing any kind of router. So they're in direct neighborhood. They can communicate one-to-one directly over the physical medium. So what you could do is you can, for example, scan that IP space, look for open vulnerabilities. You can reach to them within one hop. And if you identify some vulnerable hosts, then you could try to send for that specific vulnerability some kind of predestined packet that uses the vulnerability to allow you to copy over your worm data. And once you scan the whole subnet, then you can expand it and try to go a few bits higher, so basically step by step, or you go even as with the SQL slammer, that you just select random bits that you interpret as IP address, and then you send your message there. So there are many options how you identify IP addresses that you can send messages to. Okay, yeah, so let's say you have some IP address, let's say you have some email address. So how do you transfer your worm to a new computer? What options do you see? How do you, so what did the people tell you? Which files should you not open directly? Where do you get those potentially malicious files from? Links? Executables, but how did you get them? Where do you find those files? Okay, so an email. So somebody sends you a malicious, strange email. Where else? Links. Did you say links? Pop-ups, yeah. Please download this extension to your browser. It's very important to improve your bandwidth. Yes. Yeah, let's go for that. So I mean, exploits, that's one option. I mean, you get the file just by simply having a service open, which is vulnerable to buffer overflow, and then somebody can copy over send you a packet. It's processed in the buffer irregularly, wrongly, and then you have it in your machine and it's executed. Or you receive the file by email. Please open this invoice.pdf.exe to verify your large amount of money that you have to pay us. SNMT, so to send an email directly. So if there are some open email servers that accept emails for various sources, then that would be possible. Because an email server, it has two functions. So basically, there are the mailboxes for the customers, but the SMTP server also has the function to send to other SMTP servers. And typically, it gets the emails from its customers, but it doesn't have to. So you just can ask it to send you email. But mostly now, this is not anymore supported, but some still do it. Especially if you configure your SMTP server wrongfully. If you make some mistakes, then you could create an email server that accepts emails from others, and then you get here millions of emails that your email server introduces into the email networking system. I don't know, and it can spread worms. Social networks, maybe peer-to-peer networks or shares sites. So if you want to download some kind of illegal software that gives you some advantage, sometimes people then neglect the risk of downloading something from an unverified website where you don't know who added what kind of additional functionality to that software that eventually will be executed on your machine. So it could be virus, infected. It's problematic. Sometimes there are also backdoors, how you get the file. So quite interesting. There has been lately, some years ago, 1-2 years ago, the discussion about giving police the right to access your phone and to make some surveillance of basically your communication. But the issue at that time was also that it was possible to not just listen to your communication and observe what files you have, but also to place new files on your machines and basically activate then some other executables on that you would not like to have. So if there's some kind of software created and the administrator wants to maintain the right to, I don't know, get some additional access, then he could implement some kind of backdoor which can be then used to drop some files again. So there are many options depending on the scenario that you're in. Typically in your case, what could happen is either get something by email or by some shady websites. It's less likely that you have on your machines some kind of servers running, but if you are some kind of company, some kind of small company or so, then you have typically some kind of servers running, and if they have some vulnerabilities, sometimes there are some exploits are possible, then there are some buffer overflows, some kind of executables could be started at the servers, and this is how the worms might get introduced. Okay, so step number 1, we reached the destination. Step number 2, something's executed on the machine, but what do we do? So let's assume you are the malicious guy, and you have this many nodes affected and PCs affected with your worm. So now you want, why do you make this? So what's your intent? So typically what you are interested in, if you operate over the network, is the networking power of these machines. assumingly that you have control over them, you want to remotely control them. So I mean, it's not just that you spread them and then they are gone for you as an attacker, but you want to basically have those machines to your control, that you can send out some commands what these large number of bots should do. How can you do this? Again, now we are coming to the point of steganography. So you could post a message in a public forum or news group. You can either encrypt it, or you can just have some trivially looking messages on Twitter also, which in accordance is using steganography to hide some kind of controls in it. So if you have some kind of fashion post about body measurements, some kind of weights, some kind of sizes, I don't know. If you put a lot of number in that text, that could be used for, I don't know, encoding some IP address that is going to be addressed at a specific time. Okay. So you can basically send out through some indirect communication. If this is the attacker, these are the bots or the infected devices. Then you send something, and they are looking at the same spot. And if they identify the control commands, then they could act accordingly. And even if this is detected and the police, I don't know, captures the forum and then reads the forum, they still don't learn where the attacker came from. Okay, how do we protect ourselves against swarms? What ideas do we have? Yeah, that's not to underestimate. I mean, the human factor is at the end very high in this. So most of the attacks come basically over the people that click on wrong links, and they are in big companies. There's always some kind of privacy phishing training. How to identify phishing mails, how to identify spam mails. Spam mails is another topic. I mean, it's up to you whether you want to buy this kind of body-enhancing products. But but if you click on the link, that's more of a thing. Or if you click on a file to execute it, yeah. So there's lots of tutorials and training to identify which emails to open and which not, or to which to click or not. What else could you do? What do you want to isolate, yourself or the device that is infected? Yeah, that's also a very good point. The device could be isolated. That's typically also called, especially for critical environments, they also have the mandatory point that very critical devices should not be on the internet. They should not have any network connection. So, and I just have a student who's doing his bachelor thesis who looks at how those machines can be patched and updated and security enhanced without, basically you have to walk around with a USB stick with the updates and make sure that updates are secure and so on. Yeah, that's also an option. Yeah.
Maybe the antivirus program looking for suspicious, if it goes to some email address list or some place like that.
That's as well. So first of all, worms are also viruses. It's the same thing. Does somebody know where this 2x comes from? So this 2x? No. Somebody using LaTeX? Yeah, then this is basically here's some kind of backslash missing. Okay, so basically, yeah, this is still a virus. It's still infecting other files by sending out its own code. and you can apply the same elements to it. You can look for its behavior, especially about its networking behavior. And basically we have here the signature checks here, and we have the intrusion detection mechanisms, also in the network. Intrusion detection system, firewalls, secured networks are helpful there as well. So basically, as the worm is executing in the network, all this network security mechanisms, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, setting up a proper network are coming here in as well. And system hardening, that's an important thing. That's maybe also a good point to bring in here, because, or at the end, I will put it at the end. So first we look at all the risks, and then we look at system hardening. So what is system hardening? Just as an outlook, if you set up your Windows machine or Linux or so, and you typically have your standard installation, then it comes with very many features. So you basically, as a operating system developer and company, you want to ship your operating system in a way that the customer can do as much as he wants with it. So there are less limitations, there's less restrictions. You just plug in your USB, it's popping up. If you have an auto run, it's running. If you still have a CD drive, put in some CD, and then some program will open. If it has the CD, I don't know, some installation, then probably also some kind of program will open there. So it's very much catering to the support of the users. But with that, you have a lot of vulnerabilities, unnecessary services as well. And every unnecessary service is a potential vulnerability. So you can, if you close them, if you know what kind of services you want, let's say you don't want a printer, you don't want a printer on this machine, or at all, then you can disable the printing service to address all the potential attacks that might come from there. Or if you don't have a touch screen, you can disable that. If you have, I don't know, so you can disable everything that you don't need. Of course, you're very restricted then, and it's work intensive to do that. But you're eliminating the risks. So we'll look also into this at the end of this chapter. But let's see what else. So basically, very similar to viruses in combination to attacks in the internet, in the network, where we use firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and so on. And then it's basically the same, looking for signatures in the file itself. How does the file look like? They also have now a bachelor thesis in supervision who looks at how you can, basically how Word documents can be extended to run scripts and launch programs, such as the calculator. That's the dummy. That's the example malicious program to be able to launch the calculator. And there's now, in this bachelor thesis, he's looking at how with artificial intelligence, basically you can identify what macros are malicious and which are okay. So there are different ways to identify the file itself. And the other thing is its behavior in the network, on the machine, the same pattern. So let's come to Trojans. What is a Trojan? Referring to the Trojan War for the beautiful Helena, I think, that was captured by the Trojans from which city did she come? Was it Creta? Was it, I don't know. Sorry? No? So there's basically this ancient historical story about a princess being captured by the Trojans. No, it was the Trojans were the attacking party, I think, wasn't it? No? They were attacked.
The city of Troja with the walls that were said to be uncapturable because the walls were so big, and they used this horse to.
But the Trojans did not use the horse then, if their own city was.
The Greeks used the horse.
Okay, the Greeks,
to enter the city of Troja.
Okay, so the princess of Greece, I don't know which city there, was captured by the Trojans, I think. that was the first starting point. And then the Greeks came to capture her back, and basically they couldn't penetrate the walls. The walls were unsmashable. And then they built this nice, large wooden horse in which they put their soldiers, and basically as a gift for ending the war and giving up, the Greeks will walk home and they leave this nice present there. And basically the Trojans were happy. They were bringing the horse in, the large wooden horse, and they were drinking, and basically in the night the Greek came out of the horse and then they killed all of them. Okay, so basically the idea is here to have some regular behavior. So you have plus extra. So basically you have some additional activity in a useful function, and that extra activity is basically this additional function is run without the consent of the user. The people like to share it, so they really willingly share it because it's an active help and it's useful function and so on. So this is very good, but this extra is hidden. So for example, you could have, I mean, most of the apps that you have are probably in that way. So you get a nice feature, I don't know, some currency converting app, but it collects all of your data. And that's the extra that it's not visible, and people might use that still for the nice useful function. So any executable can be a Trojan. Yeah, I mean that could be the regular file. It's just how it looks like. So you just see the regular behavior. This is what you see, and the extra you don't see. And it also does not try to spread. So it's not a virus. It's not trying to attack other files and copy itself in it. It tries to be very attractive in order to attract many users that willingly download this app, this software, and run it, and then have that extra executed. So it's and that additional extra can be a lot. I mean, it can either capture data about you, I don't know, email addresses of your contacts, telephone numbers that you use, and let's say one option would be to accumulate lots of email addresses that you can send as later spam to. So accumulate the email addresses, send it to the attacker in a regular diagnostics message, and that email is accumulated at the attacker. Or what else could you do? You could be ready for an attack. So if you are you become part of a botnet that regularly looks in some specific forums from code messages, for steganographic messages that hint whom to attack, and then once you receive a message, you become part of the distributed denial of service attack to that IP address. Or what else could you have as an additional function? I don't know. It's as you wish. You could also have a keylogger that just captures everything that you type in, passwords, email addresses, everything, love letters, and send it with diagnostics messages to the owner, to the attacker. So there are many options for that. Yeah, how do you protect yourself from nice functionalities that might have hidden extras? How do you no.
Don't use it.
Don't
use it.
Yeah. So if you pay money for it, then it's good. Then it doesn't have. Yeah, that's right. So it's sometimes about the reputation. About I mean, what's the worst case? I mean, for an attacker, let's say somebody finds out that there's a Trojan and additional activity of a very popular product, then you would lose reputation. If you're not interested in reputation, so that's anyway a shady site, no problem, then they can still share it. But let's say if it's Microsoft, I don't know, Amazon, Google, some reputable name, then they are losing money on that. Then they are losing business customers. So if there's some kind of business interest in providing good, reliable software and having some kind of reputation to uphold, then it's more likely that it doesn't have this kind of additional extra. On the other side, closed source is also problematic. So so how are these issues detected? Typically, if it's open source, people can look into, and somebody will raise a flag. Somebody will, at least that's the hope, make that information public, that there's something going on. So if it's open source and you could theoretically verify it yourself, what's happening there, theoretically, that's some more positive element that you can have more trust. Or if there's some business interest in keeping the reputation. So you see there are more software and social factors. Think along and react to warnings. And also antivirus software sometimes helps, because once the software is detected as having this extra, it will be flagged, the signature will be spread, it will be then detected, and the user will be warned. So people should be reasonable in where they get their software from, especially if you do illegal stuff, then you could also have those people doing illegal stuff with you. So, okay, let's look at another category, botnets. Because the viruses and the worms, and sometimes also the Trojans, all might have as a malicious activity that they add that specific host, that specific machine to a botnet. So what is a botnet? So basically a botnet is first we look at the bots. These are machines that have that software running that regularly either is capable of receiving messages by a bot master, somebody who controls it, or so basically it's a push. Either it's pushed to them or they pull it from some, I don't know, public sites or so. Again, steganography. But at the end, these bots are capable of being communicated to, either by leaving the message somewhere and they pull it, or to push it directly. Often it's pull-based. And a bot master that knows where to spread the information, where to spread the control, how to take control, he has control over the machines. So for what does the bot master use these machines to? What is the benefit of having many machines connected to the internet? Obviously. So obviously, first the number is an element. So the more you have, the better for the attacker. And the more bandwidth they have or computation power, you can use those resources as well. For example, to send spam mails, to run distributed denial of service attacks, all of these bots addressing and sending messages to a victim. Or getting confidential data. So if you could, for example, have a keylogger active, and every time somebody enters some kind of credit card information, they have a specific pattern, you could look for that in analyzing the keyboard inputs. You could extract that. You could use them as web server proxy for criminal websites. So for example, if you want to sell some illegal stuff, then you want to offer this probably in the darknet. Darknet meaning it's just not, it's not visited by search engines. You have to know the addresses. There are some other steps as well, but at least it's just not documented what's there. So you have to refer to the links that are there. And basically, if you want to run a server there, you could run it on one of the nodes. And if the police shows up to identify who was hosting that website, then that bot is gone. The operator was a sad victim that didn't know that he ran that website. But basically, you have computational power, you have bandwidth that you can use for any kind of purposes to run your own services. If in some kind of, it's always malicious, but either to destroy the services of others or to offer your own services. So, how does this look like? So, we need to have some kind of connection to them. So the bot master should be able to send messages to the bots. Again, either they pull it from a site which is fed by the bot master, or the bot master can send it directly to send the control commands, to send updates. I mean, this is a software, so new functionality can be added as well. To send also the payload, basically what emails, email address to send emails to, what mails to, what text to send, and so on. So we need some kind of command and control channel. How can we communicate to the bots? Option number one, and for a long time it was so-called news groups in Internet Relay Chat protocol. They log in a specific chat room. Can be still, yeah, maybe Facebook not, because they are also some improved authentication. And basically there's some chat, distributing commands, download address, and so on. But if it's going over this IRC, eventually, how can you detect that it's malicious? I mean, if let's say you run an intrusion detection system over these machines, they are part of your company network, and then you observe the traffic of the clients of that machines, and you know typically these are some office personnel working on, I don't know, any kind of text document. Maybe they visit some websites, maybe they receive some emails, 20 a day or so, I don't know. And you see that from a specific time frame on, they start to connect to one chat server. And although you know that there's no corresponding chat software on the machines, and the users also don't chat, and then you can basically see from the intrusion detection system that some kind of specific traffic is strange, and then you identify the IP address they communicate to, you identify they are all communicating to the same, and if other companies complain as well, basically the server is identifiable and can be shut down. And then the connection between botmaster and the bots are lost. So basically that would not be beneficial for the botmaster. So the botmaster needs to have some more redundancy, some other approach which does not contain a single point of failure. So this is a single point of failure. One single point goes offline, then the whole system breaks. And let's say you don't shut it off, but you cooperate with the provider of that channel, of that server, then you can also observe this traffic and identify the botmaster. So what do the botmasters do? First of all, remove the single point of failure. They go decentralized. That's very fascinating approach. And steganography. So let's say, again, if there's maybe some chat, I mean, if it's very clear what they are talking about, download addresses, distributing commands, and so on, then that's very simple. But let's say they use Instagram to upload a picture, and that might be more regular traffic, and some of the pictures contain steganographic messages. I mean, again, we had this example that you exchange the least significant bit of any color, and then you can encode zeros and ones in that. So let's have a look. Again, a real case study. And how did it hide its command and control server? It was discovered some years ago. It had to some million bots. What was it used for? Sending spam and distribute denial of service attacks. Again, spam is profitable in a margin of 0.01% of the recipient's answer and buy something. That's very strange. And even if 0.1% only buys something, so every 1,000 person, if you send out 1 million emails, then 1,000 people will buy something. So that's quite lucrative. That's working out. Okay, how did it operate in that time, at that Storm botnet? So what I think are still available are peer-to-peer file sharing networks. And typically in peer-to-peer file sharing network you have, how to say it? I mean, what you have typically in a peer-to-peer network is that there's, let's say, so the last time when I did a study on eDonkey 2000, that was still 10 years ago, it still had 2 million or 3 million users. And the strange thing was, if you were looking for a specific hash of a file and comparing it, whether you find it in eDonkey 2000 or on Google, the peer-to-peer file sharing network was more reliable to provide the answer what kind of file this is. So there are many files inside, and basically the participants offer files. So you have all a large network of participants in the network. So, and it's a mesh, so you don't have any clear structure. And they can search for files, and they can download and that file and look at it. I mean, they had a similar structure. And basically, they set up a distributed hash table. This is something that we will also come to. A distributed hash table, first we need to look what's the hash table. A hash table is a storage setup for key value pairs. I mean, you can basically set under specific key, specific data. Yeah? You say under which key you want to store that specific data. And later, if somebody says, give me the data under this key, you get the data out. You store a specific data under a specific key. And the trick is that's distributed, that this database that you have, so if you make a list of what keys you have and what data you have, so let's say the key is a number between 1 and n, and you have there some data, then basically you cut it into parts, and node A manages this part, node B this part, and basically if you have a simple setup, and this is D. If you are looking for, I don't know, this data with the key 17, then you know, okay, I have to ask C for that. So basically you have some routing mechanism that tells you, that brings you to the peer responsible for that specific data, and then you get that data from the node that is living there. So DHT enables every participant to search for any key in the system to get the corresponding data, no matter who has stored it. So there's a routing mechanism. If you look for key number 103, then you will be routed to B. So you don't have to know in advance who has the key. You just know what's my next hop that I send my request to over this networked distributed system. And as an IP, the request is routed according to the key to the responsible peer, and the responsible peer will then answer to you based on your ID and on your routable address. And you don't have any central server. If you're okay, I will say something to this as well. So basically, what you can do is you basically can store in this network information on one node under one ID, and people can look it up. So basically, the bot master can store the data there, and the bots can look it up. And let's say the police comes and cancels this peer. This is the new network. Somebody else will be responsible for that key. There's no, I mean, in a peer-to-peer network, it's anyway assumed that that peers go offline and online. So somebody else will be responsible, and if the bot master regularly stores the data under a specific key, there will be always somebody responsible for that key. And the clients and the bots can retrieve that data. And the police or law enforcement can turn off machine for machine, but as long as there's one machine in this 2 million network participate 2 million in a network with 2 million participants, you have to switch them all off in order to really stop this functionality from happening. So what did it do? So basically, in eDonkey 2000, what was the idea is, what information did you have? What did you store? In the file sharing network, the idea was for a specific file ID that you have to know, you learn under which IP address you can download it. So this is the key, this is the data. And the botnet used a similar DHT. They have time-dependent keys. That means the key that we are using, let's say key of relevance is a function based on time and something else. So basically, if the bots and the bot master know how the key will change over time, basically for every hour or so, you have a new key. That means even if the police identifies one node responsible for the current malicious key and wants to take it down, it will be anyway just be relevant for 1 hour or so. And the bots search then for these keys again and again, so it's a pull-based approach. And whatever they find there, it's not the IP address of the file, but it's the IP address of the current Command and Conquer server, Command and Control server. Okay, so basically it's a distributed data storage which is regularly updating its keys in this botnet. So even you cannot keep up with that. So even if you learn what the new keys are, you will not have the time to shut down that information server, because it's just valid for a very short period of time. That storage box where the information lies, which Command and Control server is used. Okay. So how does it look like? How was the botnet using this kind of idea? And so what it did, they, under the currently used keys, as we said, our keys are determined by the current time. We get a key that is only valid for a specific time. And under this key, as eDonkey was able to announce which file you have under which IP address, I mean, the file was described with the file name, it has a size, probably some other metadata, and then an IP address. That looks normal, so it's steganography again. And these X and Ys are 16-bit numbers from which the bot calculates the contact details of the Command and Control server. So even if you just have this, you cannot say this is some, so it's plausible deniability, so you can say this was just a file announcement, and it's just by chance that it comes up with the CNC server details. So it's combined steganography with a distributed system. And with that, the CNC server can move to new IP addresses as it wishes and tell the bots every time where it can be found. So looking at the positive side again, so it's, okay. Yeah, this is again a LaTeX issue, because if you write, naja, egal. So, don't have to explain. So, so it's very much harder to detect. The CNC server can move and update still the bots. Okay. So how can we, what can be done to find and detect infected computers? How can we take over or cripple the botnet? How to identify the bot master? What ideas do you have if this kind of mechanism is used? let's say you have still antivirus software, you have still network intrusion detection systems, you have still firewalls, and you want to find out, are there some kind of machines in your company network infected or not? What ideas do you have? How could we react? Once again, please.
Monitor the network output of the device.
Yeah.
Or monitor the processing power.
Yeah, processing powers maybe not, but if you have a network of devices, no. This is your company network, and you have some network intrusion detection, NITs, and firewall and so on. And again, you see that from some specific time on, there are many contacts to this DHT, this network, in following this protocol. Maybe also if you can look into the corresponding messages that they are all looking for the same key. Then you can correlate, okay, there's something going on that is not introduced by the users themselves, but it has been maybe introduced by some software that is undesired, and we should take an influence on this. Okay. Good. So that would be something. How can you take it over? You put a key yourself in this P2P network under that key, and basically block the attacker from putting his key. So if the key is derived by a function of time, and somehow you can identify what this function is and how you can come up with the current key, you can every time put data at that key, and basically the peer-to-peer network then this allows to replace it with somebody else's keys. So basically you can take influence on what is accessible by the bots. Okay, and the next step that you can do, if you can recompile or recreate what the information is that is stored in that file name, and you can basically recreate the IP address of the bot master, then of course you can use that knowledge to try to address and go for that IP address holder. Yeah, maybe to say in this context as well. So, because the next is about Stuxnet, but I want to say something about peer-to-peer networks as well. So, if you are interested in more in peer-to-peer networks, you can. I have the lectures on that online as well. So, if no, is it? So, this is my website, and there you have Rechnernetze and so on. But there's also peer-to-peer systems. There's also Mobilkommunikation. That you could, that's not my, so basically it's a little bit old, but it's still up to date. There's peer-to-peer networking. It's also 10 years old, I see. And there's also even more. So still the foundations of it. If you're interested, you can look up, you can listen to it while walking with your dog, if you're doing sports or so. So feel free to listen to this exciting topic of peer-to-peer networks. Okay, so let's have a look at the real case combination of a botnet and what else can be done. I mean, Stuxnet is a quite combination of many malicious activities. It's very popular. It's still cited also in the news. Anybody knows Stuxnet? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so 15 years ago, still some time. Okay, what was the idea? at that time, it was using 4 zero-day attacks. That means not known to the vendor exploits from Microsoft Windows. So there were 4 unknown vulnerabilities that were used to gain access to the system, to escalate privileges, and then to run activities that are not desired. It hides from virus scanners. Obviously, it was not known. No signatures, no strange behavior. And manual analysis, so that was also for that hidden. And sabotaged only very specific industrial equipment in Iran. So basically, as it was also said, it came somehow in over an USB stick and tried to affect specific pumps, I think, that were needed for urine concentration to prepare some kind of atom activities in Iran. And basically it was trying to, we will come to that. So what kind of steps were included? So first of all, there was the first step. Once you put in some USB stick, it tries to load some icons. And these icon loading can be generated dynamically by code. And basically, I mean, if you stick in the USB stick in Windows, it wants to show you some icons for the folders and whatever. And if you don't always have to put a picture, you could write the code how the icon is created on the fly, so that you can probably visualize some kind of status, I don't know, of that specific folder. And the code is searched in various places, yeah, among each other, the current directory, and then executed. So if Windows knows, there's some description on the local machine in the USB stick that describes how I can visualize the icons for in the Windows Explorer, I just need to run that code on the USB stick. Then it activated already by sticking in the USB stick some code on the USB stick. Okay, the next, you are, even if you just are able to run that code as a user, you plugged it in, you want to get system privileges so that you can run, that you can install more measures to hide your behavior and so on. So this is the next step. And how did it work in, I mean, because there are typically two types of users. I mean, there's the regular user and there's the admin or root, admin in Windows, root in Linux and so on. And the administrative users have typically more rights, especially also on the CPU. They can install, I mean, they can control the whole CPU and the memory access. And especially with that, they can hide information. They can observe who is observing them. They can basically take full control, both to do harm and also to hide their activities. So how did it work in Stuxnet? So a task is typically associated to the name, command, and the user. And there's a task scheduler. This is that basically tells at what times specific tasks should be executed. So this is a time to-do list. I mean, do you know the cron jobs in Linux? Or task scheduler. It's just a list of prompts that should be executed at specific time, but also under which username, and this is stored as a public XML file. And in order, how do you make sure that this file is not modified by malicious attackers? They had a checksum. So what could go wrong? So let's say you are an attacker. Let's say you want to modify that file and you want to add a function, I don't know, do evil.exe should be executed, every minute by the administrator. So you want to modify the XML file, but you have to make sure that the checksum is correct. Can you do that?
By finding a constellation that also has the same checksum?
That's one, but maybe you can also modify the checksum. I mean, if you can recalculate it, the current valid checksum for your modified file, then the checksum check will be successful. Yeah, it's and that was quite easy to do. So even the both approaches are possible. So either to add some kind of additional random information. I mean, your code could contain some random elements such as, I don't know, sleep X seconds and then do evil, and this X seconds that you can count up as long until you find the matching checksum that matches to the old checksum, or you can do it calculated just from new. But basically that was also working. Okay, step number 3. I mean, this was Windows Vista 7 and in Windows XP. Let's see. Do we go in detail? No, we don't go into detail. No. So very similar but different. Same but different. So, I mean, they had their ways for different operating systems to allow an escalation of the privilege, especially, I mean, okay, here, the keyboard layouts that was used is basically the point where they could introduce. So basically by selecting a specific layout, by putting some information in there, they could take control of what is to be executed next. Okay, so that was if they went over a USB stick. And for very old systems that did not support USB sticks or so, they used in buffer overflow in RPC system, or printer shares, send an X and the specific file. And they could basically, by using the printer shares of old systems, they could make that machine that was sharing the printer to execute that exe file in order to prepare for the printing, but at the end it was something else. So, and typically if you are a regular user, then you have the rights of the printing user until you're a guest, then you have system rights, and the mob files that were sent were executed automatically. So basically it was well working. So they could both be executed when plugged in by USB stick, then they could escalate their privileges, then they could send such messages around in the local area network to other machines that were in the same network to infect them all. And basically they had 2 command and control centers in Denmark and Malaysia. That was also distributed then over LAN internally. And then the question is, what was the big target? It's basically the Siemens industrial controllers S7300 with a specific frequency converter from Wacom and Ferraro Papaya. And basically, I mean, it's very, very specific, obviously, as you see. And what it did, it took influence on the motors. So that they work outside of their specifications and break down faster. Okay. Every 2 weeks, basically it changed within 15 and 50 minutes between various speeds of the motor, and then they waited again and they wanted to damage the motors. Okay. So far, so what in this context, what terms did we learn? So first of all, the zero-day attack, that was sometimes asked in exams as well. What is this? This is something that has not been known to the vendor before. So the time of knowledge of this attack is 0 days. And now we learned another word. It's a rootkit. It's basically whenever you perform some activities in Windows and Linux and operating system, you leave some traces. And if you want to avoid being detected, then what typically is also added, a rootkit, which intercepts any system calls and simulates an uninfected system. So it's basically camouflage. It's hiding your activities, and that was also in this case. So basically, there was a Windows rootkit implemented by a driver with digitally signed stolen keys, so they could be installed. It looked regular, and basically the driver was leaving, but was providing false information. Stuxnet was also hidden in various prominent programs. So I mean, it really made sure that its traces are not detected. Okay, so far with potential malware. Now I'm coming to some point, but I have here some fewer points, so I wanted to make it more. I will prepare something more for. I mean, no, where is it? Where is it? Is it this? Okay. So, okay. So to talk about some countermeasures, because obviously we were talking about using antivirus software, using network intrusion detection. That's all fine. So what do these do? They find signatures of known malicious behavior, and then they also do observation, basically. So either they run your executable in a sandbox environment, and they monitor basically the interaction with the system to identify anomalies. So this is always good and should be up to date. But more on the so this is more reacting. So once your machine is already infected, then you will detect it. But what can you do in advance in order to prepare for not being infected? And I want to talk about two elements. One is hardening, system hardening, and for that maybe to visualize what's the idea. So as I said, there are many tools. I mean, if you come with an operating system, if you install it, there are so many options open, so many functionalities that you don't need. They all potentially mean a vulnerability risk. And there are some tools for it. So one of the companies here around that we also have some kind of contact to is FB Pro, for example. And they are providing some software for system hardening. And just to visualize what is that? So what you can do is you load the software, you have to trust them. Then you select your operating system. What do we have? I think this is Windows 11, so 19. And what it does, it's I want to say very simply done. Basically, it has a knowledge of what services can be associated to Windows 11 that come when you newly install it. What can you all enable? I mean, just the system, the operating system features. And then it knows, okay, I have here this list of, 700 features that can be enabled. And let's say 500 of them are enabled from start, but we want to check for all 700 features. So now it's checking. I have prepared this already. So how it will look like, let me just check. Yes, here it's like. So this will be the result. And basically what it tells me, okay, it checked various elements. There have been 986 tests. I just did it before the lecture. And 152 of these checks are fine, and almost 800 are false. My machine did not pass, and 19 were not operational. Okay, so which tests are there? So in total there are roughly 900. 70, then there are from various recommendations, basically. There's a list of how these settings should be set. So there's the CIS benchmarks, Microsoft benchmarks, BSI, as a German Cybersecurity Institute benchmarks, what should be activated, some FB Pro recommendations, and then we can look into it. Let's first of all, is it still calculating? Ah, yeah, it's now in progress. So checking now all these policies. Okay. Yeah. So, and after I checked it, so where is it? We can have a look. So, for example, this is my machine. Yes. Free disk space. Okay. So my TPM chip is ready. Great. Windows-based security. So BitLocker is not running. It's not activated on volumes. Windows Defender application guard is not enabled. At least my firewall is on. Attack surface reduction rules are enabled. They're not. So, and PowerShell version 2 is installed. Transcription is set to enabled. I mean, obviously, there are many services in Windows that are turned on by default. Okay, so here file sharing, Windows file sharing is enabled. This is considered very vulnerable. And then basically what it does is it looks into your registry. So many elements are really registry based. So what the software does is it has the knowledge what vulnerabilities exist, where to look in the registry, whether it's closed or open, and then it does a check. And then, I mean, that's all the same, all registry settings, group policies, registry value not found, registry value set to 1. So my understanding is that a lot of at least in Windows, is organized through the registry. Okay. Yeah, that looks interesting. Registry value is 3, not 4. I don't know. It's so, and then companies like FB Pro, then they have software that sets the right registry settings so that the corresponding services are closed and your vulnerability is not active anymore. What's here? No. And basically, once you disable the service, then you cannot be attacked on that. So if I don't have SHA-1 support or MD5 hash, then it will not. It might be selected in. I mean, yeah. If you follow the guidelines, you are less vulnerable. That's system hardening. And that you can do for hosts. Yes. Great. Yeah. Now I have the 2 reports. So that you can do for systems, for hosts. That you can do for in the cloud by setting. I mean, I have also dealt with the cloud, setting up on Amazon, AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure services, and you have, I think, 15,000 configuration options for rights that the user can have. And if you follow some recommendation, if you disable some specific rules and rights and so on, obviously can improve the system. I also had a student who did it for containers, so Docker containers. Yeah, it's a very simple step in the first place. Just have a list, what should be disabled, and then disable it. It's a little bit more complicated as the bachelor thesis showed. Sometimes you can semi-automatically do it. Basically, let's say 60–70% can be automatically done. In 20% of the cases, you have to ask the user, do you want A or B? Yeah. And 10% of the cases, you have to do it manually because it's too much, too complex. You cannot do it. So this is hardening. Another element, yeah, backups. It's I think we should also take that in the lab as one exercise because I've seen that so often. So you have to have backups of your data, and not just one, but to have it over a period of time. So typically I'm also somehow supporting various, I don't want to say companies, but let's say smaller companies, let's say, in their backup strategy. And it's so easy to create a backup every day, to create of the larger data packs something every week and send it somewhere. It's all the obvious points. Do it regularly, do it in different places. So if one room blows up, there's some water damage and all the backups and all the machines are there, then you cannot restore it. So have it on different places, transfer it over the internet in an encrypted mechanism. Find the right balance about when you can do backup, what to backup. And sometimes there are also very simple solutions. So what for example, I regularly do, because it's so simple, every night there's a copy taken, let's say, of the whole data set. Such small companies sometimes don't have too much data, such as lawyers or so. Lawyer firm, I mean, they don't have that much data. You can also do it daily. And every week to transfer even their whole setup as a virtual machine somewhere else, so that you have also a snapshot of their virtual machines, of their software running. Because it happens. I mean, if once I think the hard disk crashed, and they were really thinking, okay, now it's over. I have this dates and appointments at the judge and in the civil court, and they don't have any data. Of course they had it, but I mean, through the backups they had the data, so you could recreate it. And also setting up the machine by just simply copying over the old virtual machine from last week and the data from yesterday. It's doable, but set up backups, because that's always needed. Just one word for the backups. Obviously, if you have a virus and you back it up, then you have the virus in the backup. But backup data is typically not executed, so it should also be not connected via USB or so to that machine, so that the CPU can actively execute what's on the backup. So it's better to have it somewhere as a network array storage, to transfer over the network via SSH or so. We will talk about this, and have it on different places. That's also even more helping. So last slide. So we looked at all these elements, how to counteract viruses, worms, Trojans, and so on. Virus scanners, network intrusion detection systems. Social skills are quite important to keep in mind, so that you are a little bit paranoid about this. But there's always a cat and mouse game about creating new viruses, new ideas, and the antivirus software catching up. There will be always a motivation as long as there's money involved. System hardening, that's something to look into. I will also share you some links there. And keep your system up to date. Why is it relevant? I mean, once a vulnerability is detected, it is patched, and you should have to patch. As long as you don't have it, you're still vulnerable. And what's also to recommend, be exotic. So there are less viruses for Linux, because Linux has a quite low share in programs. Or if you have a vulnerability, if you have very exotic email program, you might not find macros for that executed. So typically, as a virus programmer, you always go for the big pile, Windows users, and I don't know, regular programs, and less the exotic ones. Okay, so far for today. I'm happy that you are here. See you then in the lab, and have a nice day.